Okay, so welcome to the Node API team meeting, Node.js Node API team meeting for January 14th, 2022. We will follow our standard approach of looking at the issues that we have tagged for milestone 11. Before I do that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. I will then share the screen here with I think this is the right one with the 10 things tagged for the agenda, and we can go from there. So the first one is drive towards full coverage. I know Jack gave us a heads up that he couldn't make today, but the blog post did go out, and hopefully that'll raise some awareness of some of our good first issues. And I don't know if anybody's seen any new contributions or anything in the repo yet, but hopefully we'll see something there.
There was one people that asked to write the test. I don't remember for what, but yeah, I answered that yeah, you can, you're
Right.
welcome. Yeah. So yeah, I think that the blog post had a good impact, but I hope that more people come to give their contribution.
Yep. Yeah. So if anybody's watching, feel free to join the meetings, and I guess we'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes. The next issue is stale issues in Node Add-On API to discuss. So let's just go down to the one at the bottom. Okay, so I don't see anything new. This one. Okay, so this one is just, we've got something, a workaround, but we're not, leaving it on because we think there's some additional investigation that should take place, right? Unless anybody has any updates on that one, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so 874. Right, we had a good discussion of this one again. This is in terms of, what does const really mean and how should we use it in general? And, the next action was Vladimir was actually going to try and find the text from the spec. Because the goal from that is to really understand if we take a particular position on how we use it, is that going to break anything that the spec is depending on? So for example, if you say const and the compiler can assume something, are we staying consistent with that? But I don't see an update there, so I don't think we have anything more to discuss on that one until that happens. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next one, 1026. Just looking at the last status of that one. I think this one. Right, so the last comment is a comment from Gabriel with a suggestion. And I think we might have discussed last time that, if there isn't any interaction sort of soon, we might consider that, we can't necessarily move it forward without the involvement of the originating poster. So I don't know if we think we should leave this open for a little while or sort of comment that, we're going to close this for now. Please reopen if you're still interested in moving this forward. Does that make sense?
So for this one, do we want to take the implementation that the poster made in this PR, or are we waiting for him to respond to the suggestion and say, oh, this is a good suggestion, let's close the PR, or no, I don't like this suggestion, I will go with this PR anyways? Basically, is this suggestion going to be the new way that needs to be done in order for this PR to be merged, or can we take what he has currently?
I think Gabriel, your comment was the last one, and I think it was a proposal for an alternate way of doing it.
Yeah, this was based on what Vladimir was saying, that we should try to avoid you know, passing just an array, because you know you have all kinds of like bounds issues and that kind of thing. Yes and no. I mean, you know, the final solution here would be to create a class that's similar to what span will be in C++ 2020. That was basically his suggestion, because it's safer. Now, given that we aim to interoperate with just the plain C API, I'm kind of ambivalent about this, because on the other hand, you know, having a pointer to an NAPI value, which could be, you know, an array, could be just a pointer, and we don't know, is this part of working with the C API. So yeah, like I'm not that set on waiting for the answer. I mean, if I remember correctly, I did approve this PR, right? So yeah, that's where I am.
And we do this in other places, right? I guess just not with arrays. Is that the?
I'd have to check where we use C, like just plain pointers.
Right. Just to think off the top of my head, we may use it for like the property descriptors when creating something.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I'm just looking, and it does not look like we do that. Let me look for set properties. What? Where is that? Oh. Here we go.
And just looking what's there, we seem to have a, like, it can be a pointer to what is likely an array of NAPI values. It can be a standard vector of NAPI values. And this is adding that it could be an array, like a pointer array of value objects.
Yeah. That's yeah, I guess I mean this very one already. Oh no, okay. So this PR adds both. Well, wait a second. We already have an override with argc and an API value star.
We have
Right,
NAPI,
so-
we have an API value star, yes. This is adding value star.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
we
but
already have an array of NAPI values. This is adding, instead of an array of the raw C API pointers, it's an array of the node add-on API objects.
Yeah, so I think I think our policy on protecting and well-formed array has already sailed, right? Because we already have those that are not well protected, like an API value star.
Right.
So yeah.
But I think we could make some sort of standard in our library that only the underlying NAPI types can be in a C style array, because those are C types. Whereas if we want to do something with C++ type things, maybe
That's a good point.
we would require them to be inside of a class of some sort.
Like a well-formed array, yeah.
Why not like a standard vector of them?
Yeah, I think do we not already have that?
Yeah.
So
I
we have a standard
see.
vector of NAPI values, just, I think it's like if you're working with values, converting that into a vector of NAPI values might be painful, right?
Actually, there is like vector dot, like standard vector dot assign, right? And then that's basically, assign starting address, ending address, and that's it. And that maps, that basically wraps an existing pointer into a vector without copying. So
Cool.
yeah,
So-
let me check.
So then like
check
a
as
standard
of-
vector of values would be, you could fairly easily
Yeah.
create one of those and pass it in.
Yes,
Right.
since C++11, we have void assign, initializer list, and until C++20. So that's not
Oh, I
where
see.
we at. We're at C++11, right? With
I think it's, I don't know, is it
node
full support
general.
for 11 with the compiler levels? That I'm not 100% sure of, but
Yeah, I guess I'd have to search in Node because we don't really have. I don't really have a standard in Node.on API.
Hmm.
C++17 is what we use.
so 11 should be fine.
Yep. Well, but until 20, right? After that.
Well, what does the until
Um,
20 mean?
Oh,
They're gonna
well,
get rid
okay.
of it?
Well, hold on a minute. There's some interesting assign, count, value, input. Yes, that's what I think it means. But usually, oh, I see. Okay. No. They're not getting rid of it. After C++20, whatever assign is becomes const expression. I think, yeah. So yeah. So until C++. Oh, why don't I just paste the link here? We can all look at it. I'm just faster than my trying to convey everything the page is saying. Where's the chat? Where's the chat? Chat. Paste. There you go. So yeah, right at the top, like you can see like the assign, like input IT first, input IT last. I think those will remain. It'll turn const expr after C++20.
That makes sense.
Which probably means that it can be done at compile time, if I understood correctly, which is great because like then that just it's static that way, and which it should be because the vector is not dynamic here. You're just assigning it existing pointers, right?
One of the things I'm thinking about is that since it's a member method and not like a constructor or something like that, you would have to declare the variable to create it first. So in the example, how they have the std vector of char of characters, back in the example of the docs that we were looking at.
Yeah,
This
and
one?
Yeah. So in right below in the example code there, they have int main and then std vector characters. And then they have to do characters dot assign. I'm wondering, just from like a usability or whatever, it would be more code that somebody has to write because they have to create some variable
Yeah.
first and then assign to it versus, just like a one-liner or whatever.
And yeah, and I don't know that it buys us a lot of safety. We're basically deferring safety to the user of the, or to the developer of the add-on. I mean, which we already are, right? I mean, if we get a garbage pointer, we'll do garbage with it, you know. So I don't know that it gains us much type safety to just have a standard vector that was created
Right.
with a sign.
Right, and the
Um,
argc in theory tells us the length.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
there's nothing stopping them from using an incorrect argc either here or when they're using the vector.assign.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if they have to build up anything from a pointer and a length, then that could always be wrong, no matter how
Right.
we try to encourage them to use well formed and well defined arrays. Sometimes you just have to deal with a pointer and a size. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that there's a lot of harm in that. Well, actually, okay, hold on. Just to go back into the circle once more,
Mhm.
we're talking about a pointer and a size of C++ objects in this case, right? A
Mhm.
pointer and a
Yeah.
size of C objects that I can understand, but a pointer and a size of C++ objects, you should have done better, one could argue, right? Why did the C++ objects end up in a pointer? You know, why? When they were C++
Yeah,
objects from day zero, right? Like right off the bat.
right. Like, is he doing a malloc or something in order to
Yeah.
create this
So
pointer of
yeah,
arrays? That's true.
yeah. Like my sort of interpretation and my sort of gut feeling is that these NAPI : value things, they are very lightweight wrappers, right? Like you don't think about the storage that they use up, because they should like the compiler should boil them away 90% of the time and just replace them with their contents, and should replace what looks like a C++ call with one or more calls to an API core in line, right?
Right.
That's the original goal of these bindings. And so if you explicitly set aside storage uh, on the heap for these values, then they are becoming real objects that cannot be boiled away, right? Because they have to be evaluated at runtime. And so in
Right.
principle, I think we should avoid that, you know?
And if you look at one of his tests, um, I guess this one here on line 80, or this one here on 101, the way that he creates it is by creating a vector and
Yeah,
then calling it by size and data to get the pointer,
yeah, yeah.
which doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
to me.
especially since you can already pass in a vector. Like it just, well, okay, but I mean, I can understand that for the purposes of the test, he has to create this thing somehow.
But you
Right.
can't pass in a vector, can you? You can pass in a vector of NAPI values, but not a vector of
Of
value objects.
value.
Right?
Oh,
Because
now,
like the value object will convert to a NAPI value in a singleton, but not in a
yeah,
in an array, I
yeah,
think
not,
is what
yes.
So then to me, it makes more logical sense to add a call for vector of C++ value.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then they can use a sign to create such a vector if they have raw pointers. Yeah.
that seems more useful too, because like through that one API, because of the assign, you could do either.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it would be a little more code to like wrap it in a standard vector, but I think it's worth it's worth maintaining this um this you know policy of C++ use C++. if you already start with C++, then
Right, I
stay in
agree.
it.
Because I think that also then potentially addresses the other concern, right?
Yes, yes.
And that like a vector,
Does the standard vector have constructor for like a constructor override for using a plain old array? And having the compiler infer the length? Oh boy, that's hard to tell.
I don't think the compiler would
second,
be able to tell the
Wait a
length.
second.
Mhm.
Vector has, it seems to have an override for, like the vector constructor also seems to have an override for start pointer, end pointer. So you could just inline say, standard vector bracket, start pointer, end pointer. In
Yes.
your inline call, like, you know what I mean? Like just type that as one of the actual parameters to some other function call.
Yes, I think I do see that. Vector size type count. And then.
Well, there's that, and there's also input IT first, last, that kind of thing.
Iterator. Okay,
I'd have to try this. And this is in C++
yeah.
11. Okay, so let me do that. Give it a try.
Constructor 3. Construct a container with, no, that's copies. Yeah, constructor 5, it says constructs the container with the contents of the range first to last. Interesting.
so is what I've said here, right? Like it is possible to get a value star array into a std vector in a few ways, assign, constructor, etc.
Mhm.
From what you just said, it sounded like there's a constructor where you could pass in
Yeah.
An array of something, and it will then say, okay,
you don't need the argc parameter if you have the vector.
Yes, correct. Okay, yeah, got it. Forgot to take that out. Then maybe. Does that seem like a good next step?
Looks reasonable to me. 5 is here.
Okay, I'll paste that. And then I guess, like, if we don't get any response, we'll need to figure out like, okay, well, is it something we then close or somebody else want to pick up in terms of a change? Back to the next one.
So just for reference, this works. So this will compile with C++ 11.
Okay. Right. So basically, it's not a lot of extra code. You can just like in your call, create the standard vector, which passes in the array that you have.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that gets rid of the concern that I had of like you couldn't do it in the one-liner because you could.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it seems like in C++, you're just as likely to have a standard vector of these things. So this seems like the right way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
must have these values somehow heap allocated or
Yep.
whatever, then you might as well use a standard vector.
Sounds good. Okay, so looking at the next one, the REPL issue, Jack had done some triage and basically figured out that it like somewhere between 16.5 and 16.6 there was a fix. It looked like it might be in V8, but we need somebody to spend some more time to sort of understand or figure that out. Because if there is a fix in V8, maybe that should be pulled into 14. I know that Shindicast had looked at it and sort of said it's strange that even though we're telling the console that it is a mutable method, it still goes ahead and sort of executes it. Maybe that actually got fixed in a later version. So, but I don't know if there's anything more for us to discuss until somebody has some time to take a look and figure out if there is a V8 level fix that makes any sense.
One possible refinement would be to bisect into the commits between 16.5 and 16.6 to know which specific commit fixed it, because then we can ask to please backport this specific commit to 14. I think that's more valuable for the folks maintaining the 14 line, right? Because giving them a range is kind of hard because it could be
yeah, like that's not, yeah, like basically what I was trying to say, maybe not well, is like we know something in here changed it.
Yeah.
Can we figure out what it is? Like, is it one of these V8 commits?
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of them though is like a whole is not necessarily a small commit. Like, anyway,
right.
It's basically going down to say, okay, what commits in here, or and if it's hey, move V8 to the next version, it might even be like figure out the subset of that actually needs to be fixed.
Ideally, we'd perform this experiment and give the release folks maybe even a PR saying with the backport.
Yeah, I think let
them decide.
The minimal we'd have to do is figure out what the PR, like what it is, and then even better if we actually provide the backports and stuff. But
yeah.
The next step really is for somebody to have enough time to look at it and actually figure out which of these in here. It's great that it's narrowed, that Jack narrowed it down to one of these, but now we got to figure out which one of these actually costs, because I think I looked at it and it's not like there's a tiny number of things, right? Like, but anyway, that's sort of the next useful step, is somebody spends some time and figures out, well, which one of these actually made a difference.
Yep.
Sounds good to me. Maybe I can take some time to dig into it.
Okay, that'd be great. I'll just say, oops. Just comment that there. Back. I think that's all of the stale ones. Yeah, so that's all the ones on the stale list. Tracking the issue for modules that are ported. I don't think there's anything new there. We can check a node API. Oh, so we still seem to have this sort of up and down. I don't know quite how to explain that, but it seems to be fairly consistent over the last little while, around 5.5 million. So nothing really new on that front to note. Enable debug testing for add-ons. So that one, I think, yeah, debug testing. Sorry, yeah, I haven't done anything on that. And then we're down to burning the list of issues in the repo. So let's take a quick look there. I know that definitely Deepak, the issue that Deepak has, I'll plan to try and land that this afternoon. I think it's been approved and it's all ready to go. Just I meant to do that last week and do it. Are there any other ones in particular people suggest we should talk about?
I think there was an issue that I was working on, but I haven't worked on it since my vacation, and I may need some help on it. It was the signal was not being triggered. So I don't think it's this one, because maybe that's a removal of const. It was under issues, I think.
Okay, let me get back to the issues.
And
Want me to search on Signal or?
yeah, let's do a search on signal.
Right, this
The
one
second
probably.
one, yes.
Okay.
And Legenda has mentioned that since Signal is user initiated, but there is no progress data. And this is one that I think I would like to work on, but I'm not exactly sure the best way to provide a fix. Because we have to ping, we have to make a call to the thread safe function in order to trigger it. But we need to be able to differentiate between a call of the progress and a call for signal. And I'm not sure the best way to handle that.
Is it that in this case, the same method is called whether it's a signal or whether it's progress?
I believe that is the case, yes. And we were sending it, we were doing the signal as a null pointer call. And I guess since it's null pointer, it doesn't actually trigger anything.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, so we need some kind of distinguishing parameter, right? Because it gets received on the other end, right? The parameter does.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we need to distinguish between the two types of calls. So we need to create sort of a like a mini type system where, if it's of this type, then this is a signal call. If it's of that type, then it's a progress call.
Right.
Is it
and
as simple
then-
as a Boolean? Like a Boolean parameter that tells you if it's progress or not?
I don't know what do we send in case of progress?
if you scroll to the right there, yes, it's a pair of, let's see.
Oh, I
team
see. Okay,
type,
basically an array.
an array, right? Because you say that you're going to be sending this data type in the progress. So it's
Yeah,
an array
okay.
of those.
And what's the
Okay, I see.
signal trying to tell the person?
And it's a point. So, okay. Yeah, exactly. That's a good question.
Because like, I'm just trying to wonder, like, does it make sense that there's actually like an on signal method? And if you called signal, that should get called instead of on work progress. Or does it make sense that like signal is an exceptional circumstance and you want that in the on work progress, but you know that that's the case somehow.
That is a good question.
In my understanding, the signal is just a specialized send progress, as it doesn't send any data, but it just activates the JavaScript, just give the JavaScript thread a chance to run arbitrary code, even if the loop is idle. And so that's to my understanding, the very use case for the signal. But it can be we can do the same thing with the send progress if the length of the data is 0.
It's 0, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
true. Yeah. So then
we
instead of null pointer.
previously fixed a issue is that since the thread save function behaves differently with the UV async, since we are deferring the actual thread save function call with a UV immediate. So there are chances that the actual thread save function might get deferred and in the activation of the UV async and between the UV immediate, there are chances we send UV async, we activate UV async again. So whilst we already send the data to the JavaScript thread, so that will give the JavaScript thread a unexpected null pointer with 0 data since user didn't initiate such call. So I believe, as I stated in the below comment, is that we have to distinguish if there is a user initiated call available from the null pointer case, since we only storing the data pointer to be distinguished on the activation of the save function of the async progress worker, so that when we already send the data to the user and we can set we can unflag the queue worker so that it won't get activated again whilst if the UV async was triggered again because we are deferred by the UV immediate. My explanation might not be very easy to understand, but I believe my comments may explain well than I am speaking currently.
I think I do recall, I do understand what you're saying, but I'm not exactly sure how we can differentiate it correctly, if that makes sense. And this little code block that I posted here solved one of the problems, but the test didn't. It like solved the case of sending null pointer, but then it actually broke the other tests. So that's why I said the fix is premature.
Or did it break the other tests?
Yeah, it broke the ability to do the normal progress sending for some reason. Again, it's been a long time since I looked at this issue, so I want to take another look at it, and maybe I can have some more insight for next week then. But my initial thought was to send a 0-sized list, but then I think what Legendicast is saying is that it may be not swallowed, but like it may interact with the normal progress queues or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's why it may not be getting called correctly.
It's currently swallowed because we are sending a null pointer and we are not able to distinguish the null pointer of data to no data, and the data is already consumed. So we cannot distinguish these two state. So it's all we are now using the null pointer as a state of the data of the data is already consumed. So we are swallowing the signal.
And I guess the concern of the zero, just using the empty thing, is that might confuse whatever's consuming it if it gets an empty list, because that might be, you know, an app could use that to signal something else if it wanted to.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we should be explicit about what we do, right? So we control both ends. We control the blocking call, right? And
Yeah.
we control the JavaScript or the JavaScript thread callback, right? So we
Yeah.
have an opportunity to just create a data structure which wraps the user's data and which has the hint that we need. You know, we can have an enum that says this is a signal and this is data, and then the data structure contains one of those enum values, and it contains the user's data, right? And then
Okay.
on the flip side, we just say, you know, if this is a signal, then well, do whatever signals do. If this is data, then do whatever data does. And then we
Right.
have an explicit, like we're not trying to hijack a value, right? Because it could say this is data comma null pointer, right? If it's coming from the user. And then we retain the ability to swallow null pointers, etc., while also developing the ability to signal as we should,
Right.
right?
Now, and as I
Now,
remember, this never worked, right? So we're not
correct.
breaking any existing working code by adding it.
Right. So but now my
Right.
question, so I'm trying to look in the docs and it appears that we do not have signal even documented. So what are we expecting signal to do? Is it supposed to call the
Sorry, just hold on 1
users?
second.
Yep.
Trying to find my mute here.
Okay. Are we expecting it to call the user provided on progress JavaScript with like a null value, or what do we want it to do?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's good. It's a good question.
In name, it's called the on progress with a null value, since UV async just trigger the call, and since there is no actual data sent, so it's called with the null pointer data.
Okay, so then inside the user's JavaScript function, they can check if the argument is null, then it was a signal call, and then they can handle it that way inside their code.
Yeah.
There. Okay, I think that makes sense then. All right, I think from both that and then Gabe's suggestion of that, you know, type with, I think that makes sense. I think I can work on this now.
Cool.
Yeah, great.
All right.
I think we should give Michael a couple more minutes.
Hello, sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, so we finished discussing this
Okay.
issue. I think I'm good to work more on this now.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, sorry about that. Were there any other ones that people wanted to call out that we should take a look at?
I see there's this pinned issue. Do we plan on that you have at the top here? Are we planning on another release? And if so, are we waiting for issues to be closed before?
It's definitely a good question. So Nick, I don't know if you had any suggestions. Should we actually kick that off now or?
No, we can do the release. I can work on the weekend to this new release if you are good.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. Okay. If nothing else in this repo, let's just take a very quick look in the node repo for any issues that are tagged. All right, so actually Vladimir opened this one. Yeah, so this one I haven't had a chance to read his answers, but the question is like what happens because the recent like node 17 plus is OpenSSL 3. But OpenSSL and earlier versions use OpenSSL 1.1.1. And what questions that potentially causes.
For what it's worth, I think our ABI promise extends only to like node
Yes.
API, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't really control anything else. So if the add-on needs to use other APIs, then
Right.
They may not be ABI compatible. So
No. Yep.
I don't know what we can do about this on our end.
Yeah, I think like it's interesting from coming up with, is there a path, right? Okay. Right. Okay, so this almost sounds like, okay, no matter what we do, this won't work on OpenSSL. So I don't quite follow this part.
I guess just in general, since that's a C processor, preprocessor call, if you compile something for 3, it's going to have explicit different code that won't work on 1. Just a guess from that code posting.
Yeah, yeah, and that's compile time. That's a compile time decision, right? Whereas we're all explicitly about runtime decisions so that we can maintain ABI stability. So yeah, I mean, yes, Node.js has a lot of APIs. Only one of them is ABI stable. So if you have to use the other ones, then you have to contend with the fact that they're not.
Right. So I guess it's
we
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we can't wrap everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it would be, in this case, you would need to build it. The question is, I guess, like if you built with an older version of Node, would it continue to run?
I guess not, because the new it might not even link correctly if they drop a symbol, right? Otherwise you would have like strange like things are seg faulting because the symbol is there but it has a different signature.
But they've tried to, I think they've tried to make it compatible. Right. So like this is, but this part is like,
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, so it's not
you're right.
backwards compatible. Yeah, because then the solution is to build an older. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, because I think the story would be, in my mind, if you can compile with an earlier one and it continues to run on a newer one,
Yeah, then we're golden.
then that's as good as you can kind of hope. It's not necessarily the best you can hope for, but that's actually not a terrible story, right?
No, that's right. Yeah, it's forward compatible, which is what we aim to be.
It's kind of like, because we even change the default Node API version. So if you actually build with a newer version of Node, you may build something that won't run by default on older versions, right?
Yeah.
Like you can actually set the Node API version to avoid that. But by default,
But you
you
have to do
can't
that
go.
explicitly.
Yeah, you can't go backwards. So anyway, we'll see what he says in that answer, and that will maybe, and if he's here at the next meeting, we can dive into a little bit to say, okay, what will work or what won't work and that kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, that was a good one. This is another
I
one that
have
he
to drop,
opened.
guys. I will
Yep.
see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we are at time. So I think at this point we should probably drop off unless there's anything like super high priority people think we should look at.
Mhm.
Okay. well, thanks for everybody's time, and we will talk with and see everybody in GitHub and see everybody next week. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Yep. Have
Okay.
a good
Talk to
week.
you.
Yep,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.